much for tuning in to today's episode of Inside Austin's Agenda. I'm your host, Grace Reeder, and today we have a special guest. I guess today it's really inside Travis County's agenda. We've got Travis County Judge Andy Brown with us here today. Judge, thank you so much for making yourself available.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So on this format, we get to talk a little bit about stuff that we don't normally get to talk about. For example, I think a lot of people don't actually know maybe what your job title looks like and what it is that you do every day. And talk about what it is that the Travis County Judge does.
Yeah, other than the railroad commissioner, it's like the worst named thing in Texas, I think. So every county, all 254 counties in Texas have one county judge and 4 county commissioners. And that was the way they set it up back in 1836, 1839, somewhere around there. They wanted someone in every one of those counties to be the court system. So criminal and civil courts were heard by the county judge. And then to be the emergency manager for the county, and that holds today. And then also to be, there's a couple other duties, kind of basically being the county executive for the county government. That has, in a lot of small counties, it's still the case where the judge hears cases, but in larger urban areas like Travis County, Harris County, Dallas County, Bexar County, El Paso County, to name a few, the judge no longer hears cases and just runs the commissioner's court, which oversees our $1.6 billion budget for Travis County. So one of 5 voting members of that. And also I'm the emergency manager all by myself. So when there's COVID or a freeze or a fire or some disaster like that, the county judge gets special powers to respond to that disaster in the best way possible. So I'm still called judge, even though I don't preside over cases. But in a lot of counties, the county judge does still preside over cases.
I often think of you as like the mayor of the county.
Yeah.
And then there's all the special things that you do, like you said, during emergencies. Talk a little bit about why you decided to get into this position.
Yeah, so I love the policy aspect of this. So back in 2014, me and Judge Nancy Hohengarten, she was a real judge for a criminal court at law judge, realized that there was a problem in Austin and Travis County where people were being arrested for public intoxication, and it just wasn't a good result for anyone. So public intoxication means you're drunk or high somewhere in public. You're not driving, so it's different than DUIs. But what was happening is that police would pick someone up on 6th Street or somewhere, and if they arrested them for public intoxication, they would then sit in the line to book someone at the county, central booking facility. That could take hours at times. And so you've got a police officer off the street, you've got a person who was drunk, not harming anyone else, and now they have a criminal record. They could lose their job. They could end up being in jail for a couple days sometimes, depending on the situation. And what we saw in some other counties and some other cities around the United States is that they had a place where people could go instead of jail. So the police officer can take someone there, drop them off at the sobering center. EMS can take them there, and it's a safe place to sober up overnight. So I worked on that for about 5 years. We got the police chief, a lot of mental health advocates, commissioners, city council members to agree with us. And now that thing is up and running. It's been up and running for about 5-6 years. I think it's diverted about 8,000 people away from the criminal justice system altogether, helped some people get into recovery. So it's been a really good result for, I think, everybody that we've talked to. And so I really ran to take the next step on that, and that was to get a mental health diversion center, because it's a situation that makes no sense. We've got the county jail, which is the largest single line item expense for county government here in Travis County, part of the criminal justice system, which is definitely the biggest part of what we spend your property taxes on. And you've got today about 2,500 people in the county jail, somewhere between 44% and 70%, kind of depending on who you talk to or how you measure it. That very high percentage of people in our jail has a significant unmet mental health need. So that means that they probably would not be in jail if they did not have that significant mental health unmet need. And so we looked around the country to see who's doing a better job of this than using the county jail as the largest mental health provider in the county, which is a terrible situation. So we found that in Nashville, Miami, Tucson, other places, they had a great system. And so we're trying to copy some of those systems and get our own here in Travis County.
We were going to talk about the Diversion Center later, but let's jump into it right now. No, this is perfect. This is a great segue. Let's talk a little bit about where you all are at with that. I know that that was a part of the budget conversation. You all have a pilot going, and talk about what you've learned from visiting those other locations.
Yeah, so we, I think right when I got elected, there was a question, and Ann Howard also, she's a county commissioner, came in at the same time pretty much. And there was a big push that had been going on for a long time to build more jail space in Travis County. And we decided to try to take the Commissioner's Court a different direction. And instead of just investing more money in building a space that would then get filled and would have the same old system, we wanted to meet people's needs before they ended up in the criminal justice system. So that is this mental health diversion center concept. And the idea is that we don't have enough mental health care available to people in Austin and Travis County who need it. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is that, in my opinion, the state does not invest enough in free or low-cost mental health help like they're supposed to do with the state hospital system. And then there's just been underinvestment over the years in this area. So what it hopefully will do is when police see somebody who's in a mental health crisis, or when EMS comes to somebody who's in a mental health crisis, or when a family member sees someone and wants to get them help before they end up in a mental health crisis, this is going to be a place where any of those three can take somebody. Somebody could walk in themselves and get mental health help, get medication if they need it, get counseling, get services, and then get hopefully diverted into some kind of supportive situation. If they're unhoused, it would get them into supportive housing where they'd continue to receive that mental health care and medicine as needed. And we've seen this work really well. And, most recently we went to Lubbock, Texas, where Senator Perry has worked with the local mental health authority for many, many years. I think Senator Monfort actually passed it to start the thing back in the 90s. And so, frankly, Lubbock is way ahead of us. And they have built, it's a smaller mental health diversion center and psychiatric hospital than I would want here, but they're actually rebuilding a new one to make it bigger there. So the basic idea is that it has an area where in the front that's very kind of low involvement, where it's just kind of couches, chairs, places for people to sit, receive some counseling, receive some medication if they need it. And then as you kind of go through the facility, it gets progressively more, hands-on. And so there's actually a psychiatric hospital at one end of it where people can get help and can be held under a civil hold against their will until they get help. And it's worked, I think, very well in Lubbock. The thing that you have to have, though, for this to work is somewhere for people to go afterwards. Otherwise, you end up just filling this thing and it gets backlogged like the jail or the state hospital. And so we put half of our money from President Biden for the COVID recovery funds, about $110 million towards building more supportive housing. And that hopefully will be built in a couple years. And hopefully this diversion center will be built around the same time or slightly after. And I think it will really transform Austin and Travis County, because anybody can see that there are people on the streets, there's people in our jails that clearly need more support. And this, I think, will give that to them and really change our community.
Well, this is something that you and I have been talking about for, maybe the better part of a year, probably more than that. So we will make sure to keep on top of that and keep talking to you about that topic and keep our viewers updated. Let's talk about something that voters are going to see on their ballot in November, which is the child care tax item that they're going to see. That's something that county commissioners voted to put on the ballot. Ultimately, it's a 2.5 cent proposed property tax increase that shakes out to about $125 a year for the average homeowner, and that will bring in roughly $75 million in that first year for the county to try to provide some affordable child care. Talk a little bit about what it is that voters would get for that should they decide to pass it through.
Yeah, so Travis County is a very expensive place to raise a child, the most expensive in the state. There's, the cost of a year of sort of tuition for childcare is higher than it is for the tuition for an in-state student at the University of Texas. On average, I think something like $13,000, but clearly can go much higher than that. Something like 28% of people with kids in Travis County can't afford that. As a result, there is some subsidized, affordable childcare that is provided, but there's a long wait list for that, 24 months in many cases, and several thousand families long in that wait list. And so What this would do is provide affordable, high-quality childcare for basically anyone in Travis County who cannot currently afford it. And the idea is that you're going to then get the parents of those children who can go back into the workforce, who can get trained at Workforce Solutions to get upskilled and have a higher paying job and improve their economic status. They would then have the option then to go back to work, because right now there's so many families that because of that wait list, because of the cost of it, they can't get high quality, affordable childcare. So this would change all of that. And so I'm, very excited about the short-term prospects of shrinking that wait list and helping people get into the economy to help our economy here in Travis County. But there's also a lot of long-term benefits. So kids that have high-quality childcare are much more likely to not end up in jail later in life, to not have higher health care bills later in life, and to just be a productive part, a contributor to our great economy here if they start out with great childcare. I've got 2 kids. I remember how, frankly, difficult it was to find a place and how expensive it was to pay for kids to be in childcare from especially 0 to 3. And this would solve for that, and it would help families across Travis County. It would help our economy as a whole. We've got so many great companies that are here and trying to grow in Travis County, from Samsung to Tesla to manufacturing companies around them. And if we can't continue to grow our workforce with skilled workers, we're going to stop attracting a lot of those great companies to come here and thrive. And so this is going to help not only with those individual families, but help with the workforce in general.
If I'm not mistaken, I think you posted a picture that I'm shuffling topics. This is a hard turn. That when you got served papers from Ken Paxton, that it was actually someone that you went to high school with who served you those papers. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is. And I want to be clear, she does not work for Ken Paxton, so I want to clear her name there. But yeah, she worked for the company that serves people for any lawsuits that any lawyer can hire. But yeah, it was a funny coincidence. She came into my office to serve me with this lawsuit, and it was a friend of mine, Corey, from high school.
That's the most awesome thing I maybe have heard all month. Talk a little bit about that lawsuit, and specifically, I want to know, for our viewers, if they haven't been caught up. So obviously, Attorney General Ken Paxton has sued Travis County on multiple things over the past couple of months, but this one specifically is over you all sending voter registration sign-ups essentially to people, asking them to sign up to register to vote. The Attorney General essentially saying that it may invite fraud. How frequently does it actually invite fraud?
Yeah, this is a crazy one to me. It's like the county governments, it's so hard to register to vote in Texas compared to other states. We don't have online voter registration. Basically, if you want to register to vote in Texas, you have to have a printer, you have to have a stamp, you have to a pen and paper to write on. Not something that everybody has, especially students maybe that move around a lot or others. And so it is not only an option to do this for counties and the state government too, but I think it is our duty to do this, to try to help people get into the democratic process who are eligible voters but are not registered at their current address. And so we, talk to our lawyers, make sure we could do this. There's a literal statute that says we can even use state money to do this exact thing. It's I think Chapter 19 funds that Bruce Elfon's office who's our, voter registrar, I guess is his title for this, the tax assessor collector. It says in that statute that we can use these funds to do mass mailers to register voters. And so what we did was a mass mailer to register voters. And the idea was we put this up just like we do with anything where we're going to hire anybody. We put it up for a competitive bid, went through the purchasing process, and we then sent out all these mailers to people who were unregistered but eligible to vote in Travis County. And then even if it goes to somebody, first, these were not pre-printed, so Grace, if you got one that was addressed to someone else, but you wanted to register at your current address, you could do that too. The safeguards in this system are many. Right. First of all, Bruce Elfont, you fill the thing out, put it in the mail, goes to Bruce Elfont. He then enters it into a database. That does not mean you're a registered voter. It first has to go to the state of Texas, to our Secretary of State's office, Jane Nelson, a Republican appointee, who then verifies if you're in fact an eligible voter. She has access to the Social Security database from the federal government, other ways to make sure that you're an actual eligible voter here in Texas. And only then, after you've passed the state of Texas's test, can you become a registered voter here in Travis County. So it's something that Secretary of State Jane Nelson has like promotional items on her website about registering to vote. We do the same thing here in Travis County. Bruce Elfont has a great relationship with the state of Texas and is a avid voter registrar in person. And so this is just one other thing that we were trying to do to make it easier to vote in the state where, frankly, it's not that easy to register and become part of the process.
How expensive and difficult is it to fight these lawsuits?
It's a complete waste of time. And Ken Paxton has become an expert on wasting people's times with these frivolous lawsuits. It's clear that we have the right, that there is literal statute saying that we can do this thing. So as a result, we have our county attorney working to defend us. We also hired outside counsel who's more familiar with this specific type of litigation. So it adds up. And just think about everyone that Ken Paxton sues from. He's not just sued Travis County, he sued Bexar County, he sued other counties. It's disturbing that he is doing all of these lawsuits right before the election, and I'm very cynical that the real reason for it is not any of his stated reasons, but instead it's to intimidate counties like Travis and Bexar County and Harris County even out of doing what their duty as public servants are to make democracy accessible for any eligible voter.
Shuffling along to the budget, you all recently approved Travis County's budget. Obviously, as we know, those are taxpayer dollars, and so people should be paying attention to how you all are using their money. Talk about some of the highlights of what you all are going to use that money for.
Yeah, so everything that we do at Travis County is funded by your property tax dollars. We don't get sales tax, there's no income tax, so it's mainly property tax dollars, some fees, but largely property tax dollars. So it's important for us to have a budget that reflects the will of people here in Travis County, and I think that we've done just that. So we put, as you referenced earlier, a very large amount of money towards this mental health diversion effort. We have a pilot that's already up and running that we're working with Integral Care on, and I think the grand opening officially is tomorrow for this. We've got Central Health is helping fund that, as is the City of Austin. And that's going to help us sort of determine what this eventual mental health diversion center will look like, and also get people up to 25 at a time, basically, in a situation where they can get care and be in a supportive housing environment. So it includes increased money for our parks department. We just recently added thousands of acres to our park system because voters approved bonds to purchase green space and preserve land. So we're investing heavily in making sure that people have clean air, clean water, and places to have fun and recreate all across Travis County. We also invested in counsel at first appearance, something that not every county, a lot of counties in Texas don't do this, but we feel that it's important for people, if they're arrested in Travis County and cannot afford a lawyer, to have a lawyer from the very beginning, from the first moment that they're in front of a judge. And so this is a step towards that. It's not 24 hours a day, but it's a huge step for that, and frankly, a very expensive step towards that. It's not cheap to run that system, but we thought it was important to make sure that people had that representation at every stage.
On the same day that you all approved your budget, people probably maybe don't know that you all also have to do the final stamp on Central Health's budget. Central Health is the healthcare district here in Travis County that voters approved. That conversation was interesting. There was two elements to it, and Commissioner Shea said it to me. I think she said, "Grace, it was crazy," or something like that. So there was an interesting conversation both about community care and the director there, and then also about funding that Central Health is using that is going to the university. And if we can focus on that, because I think that has the biggest impact potentially on taxpayers, and what you all did to try and put some safeguards there in the future.
Yeah, so first I want to say that we are very lucky to live in Travis County, where we have voters that have approved this healthcare district, which is called Central Health, back in 06, 07, something like that. Those functions were taken out of county government in a way, but we still approve their budget. We appoint half of their board, the city appoints the other half. So there's still a very strong relationship with the county, and they do a lot of good. They fund indigent health care, low people with lower incomes that need health care in Travis County can get it through funding from Central Health. A lot of that funding flows through community care, which has historically been the provider of health care for people who get money from Central Health. And so there's community care clinics across the county, and they do a lot of good. They help keep people out of emergency rooms. They help detect cancer in people. They help treat people who have cancer. We could not, I don't think, function as a county in good faith and feel good about it if we did not have that amazing sort of lower income healthcare safety net that we have here. So overall, it's great, and I was happy to vote for that budget. There are issues, of course, as there are with lots of things. And one of them is so Jason Fournier is the head of community care. He's been an amazing partner throughout COVID and through MPOX and everything else. Like when we were, I hate to even bring up COVID at this point because it's not the most fun time. But what we did, we were having trouble, I think, as a local community trying to figure out how to get vaccines out to people who had to work, who could not work from home and had to be in person. A lot of those people are people of color, lower income people, Spanish speaking people. And the way the state rules were, they wouldn't let us focus on those populations as the county. And they, in fact, sued Dallas County for trying to focus on a specific zip code to vaccinate. Jason Fournier worked with us to figure out how to vaccinate a lot of the workers that had to work in person. And that was by vaccinating community care patients. And the governor was fine with that. He let other healthcare systems vaccinate their populations. And so this was another healthcare system that we vaccinated. And we did that largely at Circuit of the Americas. They weren't having races there during COVID. And so they let us take it over to have the largest, I think, non-FEMA drive-through vaccination effort that I have heard of in the country, definitely in Texas. And we vaccinated tens of thousands of people there each week. I think it was maybe 15,000 a week, something like that. And it could not have happened without community care because they let us use their database, their sign-in sheets, their tracking stuff. And Jason Fournier, when I called him to ask if he would help, he said yes before even knowing, frankly, how to do it. And he worked with us and did some amazing things. He was able to do that, I think, because he's an independent, nonprofit. He's not a governmental entity, so there's not some of the bureaucracy that sometimes happens with governmental entities. All that to say, Jason's been a great partner. There's apparently a dispute between him and Central Health. I don't know all of the details about it, but that was something that came up in the budget cycle. I'm looking forward to finding out what those details are. But all I know is that Jason's been a great partner for us for all these years. The part with the University of Texas, there's obviously concerns because the money that voters allowed to go through Central Health is supposed to go largely for indigent health care. I need to get a little bit more familiar with the exact details of that statute because clearly they can pay for some other things, but the bulk of it has to go for indigent health care. And so there's questions that people raise about how that money is being used at UT through the medical school. That's something that I'm meeting with UT about, trying to make sure that we can get to a place where we can clearly show that it's being used in a legal way and that it's supporting the mission of Central Health. And that's something that came up in the budget session. And I don't, it doesn't seem resolved at this point, but I think we're trying to work through it with all partners.
Let's end on a good note because you brought up COVID. We're going to end on something a little bit lighter. We don't like talking about COVID. Let's talk a little bit about commuter rail. You recently did a trip with some folks from Mexico with some other commissioners from around Texas. Talk about what it is that you all are trying to do.
Yeah, we had a fun train trip from San Antonio to Austin on Monday a couple weeks ago. So there's a train, surprise, that goes every day from San Antonio to Austin and then goes on up to Dallas. It leaves from San Antonio at about 6:48 a.m. From downtown San Antonio, it comes to downtown Austin. So if you live in San Antonio and work in Austin, it is a decent commute mechanism because you never get stuck in traffic. There are sometimes, though, delays because of involvement with freight, right-of-ways, and things like that. But the goal, so we've been meeting about once a month with this group called TPRAC to look at different options for increasing passenger rail options in Texas. So we got a lot of local government officials, me and Bexar County Judge Peter Sakai have spearheaded this group, and we are trying to gain support and awareness of the fact that we could have really great rail between San Antonio and Austin. Andy Byford, who's senior vice president at Amtrak, came with us on this ride and saw the route where currently you go about 35 miles an hour for a good chunk of it, and then you get up to 60, 65 miles an hour. And his opinion was that the reason why it's so slow, it's not the engines can't go faster than that, it's the track is in bad condition. Mm-hmm. So if we, could invest in making the track better, we could be going 100 miles an hour on that route instead. And so there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, I think, to improve passenger rail in this corridor. And we're working with TxDOT, with some Republican county judges. This is not a partisan thing at all. And everybody that I have talked to wants to do this. People that I wouldn't agree with politically on other things are actually really excited about this, because there is no way that we can build enough highways between here and San Antonio, a region that's going to have something like 8 million people by 2050. I think today we have something like 5 million in this sort of super region. And there's no other place that I can find in the world that does not have great passenger rail service between two such big cities 70 miles away. So I'm excited about where we're going with that. We're, again, working with TxDOT to get grants from the federal government to kind of study that route. And I hope that within 5 years, we could have more Amtrak service on that route. I think the longer term solutions of maybe some kind of high-speed rail or faster options on new tracks, I think could come. There's a company called Brightline in Florida that is interested in doing that. Texas Central is looking at doing high-speed from Dallas to Houston with a potential leg to Austin in the middle of it. So I think there's a lot of exciting options out there. And it's, again, one of those things that everybody seems to want, and it just hasn't been, frankly, focused on enough. And that's what I'm trying to do with Judge Sakai is focus on this more, and so that more people can have these fun train rides. And one big point, though, say we get great passenger rail between here and San Antonio. A study I saw says that would take about 25% of the traffic off of I-35. So people like me that like trains can ride trains all day long and be happy, but also people that still want to drive their cars between Austin and San Antonio could do so with more ease because there would be fewer people on there. It's going to help the economies of both counties and in between, because if you couldn't afford to live, in downtown Austin, but you work in downtown Austin, you could live in San Marcos or New Braunfels or San Antonio and reliably get to downtown Austin every day if we had, more and more reliable passenger service.
Well, Travis County Judge Andy Brown, thank you so much for doing this and rolling with the punches on all of the topics that we covered today. This is a fun format where we get to talk about sort of a splattering of things that you all are doing at the county. I really appreciate your time.
This is great. Thanks, Grace.
Absolutely. And don't forget that we have a mayoral debate on October 17th. We're going to be doing something really, really cool right here on KXAN Live. While the debate airs over on KXAN News at 4, we're going to be doing a live show right here where we're going to be fact-checking and providing context for you. So make sure to tune in for that. Thanks, everyone.